Good evening, all. Brian Maher, June Maher, East Lane, Geneva Township. Many of you were here, not all of you, when we came in front of you to tell you about the trees on the MIF Geneva potential development. And we do understand that at this time it's not annexed into the city, so there is nothing that this body can do. At the time, our intent was merely to bring awareness to everyone about this. And I think everyone here is aware of it. Many of you are probably aware of what happened today as well. There are also many other people that now have awareness about this project. We're up to 2,200 on a change.org petition, which, as I understand, never having done one, it's a huge number apparently. But it is with a heavy heart that I tell you what happened today when I woke up and heard the sound of saws in the woods. And there's now a 30-foot wide gash right through the heart of this remnant oak woodlands. Now, and I truly believe this, that when I met with staff in 2018 and was told that the trees would not be touched, I truly believe that that was said not with bad intent. The wetlands are a completely separate part of this. The wetlands are protected, but the trees have no protection. There are bats in the woods. Are they long-eared bats that are endangered? We don't know yet because they're very hard to get a picture of or to see. About the only way you can determine that is if you find a carcass. The way the state IDNR makes a determination prior to signing off on something like this, if there has been a long-eared bat within, I believe it's a 15-mile radius, then automatically it's protected. They feel that that's within their range. The nearest verified long-eared bat was further than the 15 or whatever that number is, was further away. There are numerous roosts in these woods. Some of these roosts are maternal roosts. The bats come back generation after generation to these old oak trees. Once again, this is a viable remnant oak woodlands. There are saplings. I went out there today. Yes, I went out there. Standing by itself in an open field was an oak tree, probably about this size, standing by itself, chopped over, left about this much left of it. The animals here, the biodiversity, the CO2 sequestration, the fact that we can spend all the time that we spent talking about a blacksmith shop for 150 years old, but here we are with an area that has much to offer, and there's not a discussion. I know that this is not your place to do anything yet, but I'm going to tell you, when we came in to tell you about raising awareness to you, hoping that someone here, perhaps someone somewhere could do something, really all we wanted to do was someone to talk to MIF. And we know there's back channels. I know there's back channel conversations going on with MIF. Initially, all we wanted was building 5. We didn't have a problem with the other 7 buildings out there. It's on open land. Building 5 takes out these trees. That's all we asked for. Someone have a conversation with MIF. Yet here we are, because no one could. MIF won't talk to anyone. They won't even talk to the reporters. So I believe that we did our job in raising awareness at this level, at the county level, because there will be a tree preservation ordinance voted on. It's not going to do any good for these, though. There will be an opportunity for you to annex, change the zoning, everything. This will all go through the process. And I think awareness has been raised, and I think it's going to be a little more difficult now to get anything through. We'll see what happens, but I really feel that the city of Geneva that we've been in for 35 years, we love this town, man. And it's a failure.
Thank you, honey, for being so eloquent. I am so proud of you. Tonight, I have not chosen to be quite so eloquent. What I would like to do this evening is congratulate the City of Geneva on its brand new logo, Stump City USA. Stumps, that's what we saw today, stumps. Now, I'm no fool, and I believe that.
Ms. Maher, we're going to ask you to speak at the podium because we want to make certain that your words are captured for those tuning in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel that this new logo is now your legacy. You own it. You have allowed this to happen through inaction.
We're going to have to ask you to remove that piece in front of the podium. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Make sure the camera sees it. You will own it. This will be the legacy of this administration, of this city council. People will know. And elections have consequences, but in my heart of hearts, I do feel that leadership could have prevented this in a better way, and I'm very disappointed in this city council and administration for not stepping up and doing the things that they claim to honor on their Arbor Day proclamations, on their Tree City USA, and all that other blankety-blank hypocrisy. You will own this as your legacy. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Linda Karl, and my husband, Bob Dynick, and I moved to Geneva. We wanted to move to Geneva 2 years ago. We moved here in 2021, and we lived in Batavia for 29 years. I heard about these oak trees very recently, and I was, first I have to say, as a garden designer, as a certified horticulturalist, as a master naturalist, and as a prairie steward at the Morton Arboretum, I am appalled at what Geneva is allowed, because they're cut down today, what Geneva allowed to happen. So my claim to fame is that I started the Braeburn Marsh Defenders 23 years ago. And some of you may or may not remember or know of what happened at Braeburn Marsh. But I'm just gobsmacked at the difference that the City Council of Batavia and the citizens of Batavia, the difference between Batavia and the city of Geneva regarding these oak trees. We're always at the City Council meetings regarding Braeburn Marsh, and which was unincorporated, and just like this property is. And the city we were always in full communication with the city. Surprisingly enough, we were in full communication with the developer of that property, which was Aetna Development. They wanted to do Best Buy, and which moved to Geneva, so you're welcome. They wanted, I think they were talking about putting in a Walmart, which actually moved across the street. We were always in full communication with the development company, which when I was told that this developer refuses to talk to anybody, I find that really strange. And we always knew that there was going to be development at Braeburn Marsh. But what we did was really make that footprint a lot smaller over at that area. We knew it was going to be developed. And looking back, I actually looked up some old Tribune articles today about the Braeburn Marsh defenders and what was going on at that time. And since that property at that time was not annexed to the city of Batavia, a lot of us walked around Batavia with petitions asking whether the city council should vote to annex that property. And the language, it was going to be on the ballot so that Batavia residents could vote on annexation of this. And the language was, shall the city council for the city of Batavia deny the annexation petition of Etna Development and do everything in its power to maintain the existing natural area commonly referred to as the Braeburn Marsh and its current state as a marsh and open space. So I know there's no debate on this or talk on this, but I just was wondering why did, if that ever came up with this city council. And I also recall that at the time, the Kane County Board's Executive Committee recommended, I know there's no tree preservation ordinance, not with the Kane County, but the Kane County Board's Executive Committee recommended that the full board approve committing up to $1 million in riverboat funds to aid the Braeburn Marsh defenders. So they were willing to put this money towards buying this property. The Kane County Forest Preserve District's Executive Committee took similar action, voting to have its board pledge $1 million from its land acquisition funds. So that was $2 million for a marsh. That was not 300 years old. It was man-made. So these are remnant woodlands that are being destroyed next to their property. It's a remnant woodland that 300 years ago the Native Americans walked on. And now it's going to be a warehouse? Is there going to be any type of environmental review of how they're going to build this warehouse? Because I remember when we were discussing this with the developer during the Braeburn Marsh discussion, we wanted them to use like making the parking lot like environmental, so that it's not like 1 million square feet of concrete, and planting native trees and native plants around the marsh. Is that going to be discussed with this developer who, who obviously is not talking to anybody? I mean, we sat down, I and the city planner of Batavia at that time sat down with the developer's attorney and looked at landscape design plans. Is that going to be done for this warehouse? So I know there's no discussion or debate about it, but as a resident of Geneva, a very environmental one who's very concerned with the environment of Geneva, I'm just wondering if that's going to happen, because it's one thing to tear up a farmer's cornfield to build these mega warehouses that are not even rented to anybody yet. They're done on spec. I mean, it just is mind-boggling to me that this was allowed to happen. I mean, 300-year-old oak trees cannot be replaced. I don't know if anyone, I know how important those are. I went out and searched for witness trees as part of my naturalist training. I know how important they are. And you would think with climate change now, I mean, 23 years ago with the Braeburn Marsh, there was no talk about climate change. Now people are talking about climate change. And the more trees there are, the more that helps heat, the weather and everything. And I just have to say that if, Geneva considers itself a tree city, allowing these 300-year-old oak trees to be chopped down, you better take that back, because it doesn't mean a thing.
Sorry. Apologize if I'm cutting anybody that wanted to speak. I have to be at work at 4:30 in the morning, so I apologize. My name's Rick Kozlowski. I'm not from Geneva. I'm from Warrenville, but I grew up in the area. I've been familiar with that property, the Bork Farm, my entire life. Hunted there when I was a kid. My dad's family, West Chicago was a really small town back then, so there weren't a lot of people and everybody knew each other. I mean, I've known the Bork family forever. I'm not connected, I mean, I'm aware of what Brian and the Save Geneva Trees and all that are trying to do. I'm not connected with them in any way. But I do have information to share that isn't being talked about. I have an extensive background doing environmental work, habitat management work. I was a senior project manager for the biggest environmental company in the state, doing multi-million-dollar projects with the state Army Corps of Engineers. I have a background in this. I know who did the surveys. I know who did the environmental survey. I know who did the archaeological surveys. I know who did the environmental impact survey for the property. I'm not making any accusations, but they weren't done well. The evaluation on the trees, on the wooded area on the property, really seriously undervalues how good this piece of property is. There are not 300-year-old trees on the property, but there are pre-contact trees there, and quite a few pre-contact trees. And this is important because this is a seed bank. It's not just habitat, it's not just animals. It's an entire system. And this is a little remnant. This is all we have left are these little scraps, these little remnants that didn't get plowed under, didn't get clear cut between 1840 and 1880. When, I don't know if you're aware of this, but 98% of the state was clear cut between 1840 and 1880. Everything was made out of wood. Roads were made out of wood. Everything, you burned wood. Everything was wood. They literally came in and clear cut the whole state, the entire state, and then plowed almost all of it. We have almost no old trees. We have no old growth forest anywhere in the state of Illinois. All we have are little tiny pockets of trees, of old trees. There were 2 Chicago bearing trees on that property, witness trees. If you go look on the Field Museum website, it shows that they're still there. They're not there. They didn't apply for permits. They didn't do anything. They just a year and a half ago, contractor that rents part of the land wanted a bigger lot. They cut them down. These are 300-year-old plus trees that are on the National Historic Landmark list. These are protected. No, they just cut them down. Here's the thing. There's been numerous archaeological surveys done on the property. You have to understand how this works. The state archaeologists get one shot to go out and look at the property. They have no control over the conditions. They have no control over the time they go. It's just they get one shot, you walk out, you get to walk around and see whatever's laying around, and that's it. And they make an evaluation on if there's anything they're worth investigating or not. There could be something incredible right out there in the lawn in the yard across the street that's under the grass. That how are you going to know it's there? Because you're not allowed to investigate on purpose. Well, here's the thing. I do archaeological work. I don't work for the state. I do a lot of work with the state. I do a lot of volunteer work with the Illinois State Archaeological Survey. I do work locally. I do paleo. I'm what they call an avocational archaeologist. I do paleo-Indian research. And I work with people at the state that we're all involved in a big paleo-Indian research project. Those are the first people here. We're talking about the time from 13,500 to 10,000 years ago. There is, right where Building 5 is going, there is a registered, with the state, Paleo-Indian campsite. There's an 11,000-year-old campsite right there. We have been trying to get access for 3 years, just to come in and salvage it. We can't, they did everything by the book. You guys have no control. This is all done through Kane County, so it's not, you have no influence on this. I'm not blaming any of you or pointing fingers. Just making you aware that we've been trying to get access. We've offered to come in and for free and do the work. They don't talk to anybody. And here's the other thing. I have evidence. There's evidence that the initial fur trading post, the two brothers that came out, and what became Geneva in 1828, 1827 to 1828, they came out and set up a fur trading post 1.5 miles from the river near the Potawatomi village. Black Hawk's War kicked off in 1830, and they got out of here, like a lot of people did. I don't know if you don't know the history of Black Hawk's War. This was not a good place to be if you were a white settler at that time. They left. They came back 2 years later, and instead of going back to where they were, the Potawatomi village was no longer there, and they moved down to the river and built the mill. There's real good reason to believe that the site of that fur trading post is on that farm, under those trees. I have a lot of evidence that points to that's where Geneva was started, was on that property. You guys don't have much control over this. I just wanted you to be aware. The state's aware. Jeff Kirchen, who is the State Historic Preservation Officer, was trying to contact the developer today. I don't know how the permits were written, the environmental permits, for the cutting of the trees, but it shouldn't be just that 20-acre easement for the conservation easements that's covered because of the bats. Legally, they should not be able to cut in there until October 1st, period. But they're in there. This is the attitude they just have about everything, and this is who you're getting into bed with. And I have no control over any of this, but I'm just giving you the information. I'm happy off the record to share more detailed information. There's archaeological features all over that property, and most of it dates from 11,000 to about 8,000 years ago, which is the late Paleo, early Archaic. These are the very first people coming back in here and settling this landscape after the Ice Age ended. And this was a whole brand new landscape. They were coming onto a completely new landscape. When the glaciers retreated, this looked like the surface of Mars, literally. It was just piles of rock and gravel and sand and clay with water running through it. It took a couple thousand years for the land to heal enough for people to start coming back. Really, these were the very first people to come back. And we have a full-blown campsite sitting right on that property that it's in an area that's been plowed, it's disturbed, but it's relatively flat, it hasn't moved, all the material's there, and we know next to nothing about these people. The Paleo period, that's why these sites are protected, because they are so rare. You got to realize that at the time that campsite was there were maybe 25,000 people in all of North America. And it's 11,000 years old, and we know they were there, and it's a large campsite. They weren't there for a night, couple nights, couple hunters, and they moved on. This is a large campsite. And it deserves, if we can't stop the development. It's not going to stop. We all know this. But this deserves to at least be salvaged. It needs to be recorded and protected. We can't stop it, but we can at least get the stuff out. And we need help, because they won't talk to anybody. The IEPA, it's not even worth picking up the phone. They don't care, period. State Preservation Officer's done what he can. He's reached out to everybody. We've been trying to get in there for 3 years. So just so you guys are all aware of what is out there. I appreciate your time, and hope you guys have a good night. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Rachael Albers. east side of Geneva. They paved paradise and put up a parking lot with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hot spot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a warehouse development. I am here today to talk about paving paradise and putting up parking lots and warehouses. So I join my fellow residents with concern, and yeah, I think there's a place for art in protest. I also think it's helpful to disrupt what can be long, boring meetings, because we're not talking about boring things. It might be a difficult forum, right? But we're talking about the native land here. We're talking about Illinois' history. We're talking about the air our children breathe. We're talking about the trees that blow on a hot summer's day and cool us off. We're talking about the beauty of this world. That's what we're talking about. And we have to be constrained by this forum, and yet I wanted to bring a little of art, not to disrespect the city council, but because the city council exists to uplift and preserve our way of life, our joy, our art, our children, our happiness, our Labor Day weekends, our summer barbecues and our winter campfires. That's why I'm here. A lot of other people have made a lot of great points about these trees. Something that I do want to mention is once they're gone, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? And I don't think we'll know what we got until it's gone. Because this is a city, a tree city, that says that it's committed to environmental justice. Mayor Burns, correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to believe that you are the chairman of the environmental committee of the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. And on September 19th, your meeting is about environmental justice. And to me, what is happening to these trees is an environmental injustice for all the reasons cited tonight. One big thing is these indigenous artifacts that were here before we were here, before European or white settlers were ever here. We've got the bats, the endangered bats. We've got 100+ wildlife species that are nourished and supported by these trees. Not to mention the improvement that these trees give us to water quality, how they prevent soil erosion, how they improve our air that we breathe, mitigate heat. One of our fellow residents said something about people weren't talking about climate change 25 years ago. Now they are talking about climate change. We're not talking about climate change. We're living in climate change. We all lived it this summer. Smog and heat indexes and the hottest days in the history of the world happened this summer. I won't go into all the details about what warehouses do to the environment. You guys know that. You can Google it. It's on the record. It's not speculation. It's not fear-mongering. It's fact. But what I will say, as we move forward, because yes, I am aware that the city can't officially do anything. I disagree that they can't have some form of influence. 2,200 people have signed a petition. Thousands of people across the region. Tonight on CBS Chicago News, all of Chicagoland heard about us and our fighting for these trees. In the Daily Herald, I talked to NPR today, talked to WBEZ today. People care. Anytime someone hears about this, all across the country, people care. And I have heard stories from people who have heard about this and said, I heard about a warehouse project in my area. Here's what it did to us. Here's how my community degraded in the 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years after. I've talked to people who have been in regions where MIF has developed. And the experience that we're having, and this is what I think is important going forward to bring to your attention as City Council, you may not be able to prevent or stop or do anything, but MIF is going to want things from us in the future. They've already indicated that they are going to want things. They're going to want favors. They're going to want adjustments. They're going to want annexation. They're going to want to go around policies. Well, and we're not going to necessarily abide by the tree preservation policy. Can we do this instead? But as many residents have shared tonight, MIF has also indicated they do not care about us. They are not friendly to us. And when I hear stories about developers in Batavia who are having conversations with the residents and making compromises and concessions and saying, well, how can we work with you to make this better? Because they smartly, strategically, rightly know that they're going to have a long-term relationship with this city and its residents, and they're going to want to make sure that they can have a friendly relationship. MIF has shown us before they've even really broken ground, honestly, what kind of a partner they're going to be for the city of Geneva, what kind of a neighbor they're going to be for us. And I don't know about you, but I live just a few blocks away from this. So I'm going to spend the rest of my childhood life growing up is going to be with this bully at our back. So I definitely urge the council to remember how MIF has treated us, ignored us, been dismissive of us, laughed in our faces today when we talked to them about our concerns. I know for a fact that MIF could move their warehouse number 5. They just don't want to do it. Because they took all the trees, you put them in a tree museum, you charge the people $1.50 just to see them. That's the rest of the lyrics of that song, They Paved Paradise. Joni Mitchell. They could move it, but it would cost them. And instead they're willing to trade 300 plus years of heritage, all of the damage to our environment, and they're willing to trade their friendly relationship with us for what, a few dollars? That says a lot to me. I would urge the council, and I would urge you, Mayor Burns, as the chairman of the environmental committee for the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, I think there's a way to communicate to MIF without betraying your public office. I really do. I believe there's something more that can be done here. I believe there is something more that can be done here. But until that happens, I will be here and I'll be singing. So I'm taking requests. Let me know what you want me to bring in next time, all right? You got a few days to prepare. Maybe I'll bring my guitar. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much.
Anyone else?
Hi, Jeanne McGowen. As you all know, I dislike public speaking, but I want to thank Rachael for her eloquent words and beautiful singing. I couldn't have sung better or said what she said better myself. I also want to remind the council of my opinion. This is my opinion. I hope you'll give me the ability to share my opinion, whether you agree with it or not. That when I was on city council, the information about the oak trees was not made well known, if known at all, to me when I was on this council a couple years ago. And that does not sit well with me at all. I think about that every day, and that's what motivates me to try and do what I can on a daily basis to try to save this pristine oak forest, which is part of our community, even if it is a few yards outside of the city of Geneva proper. This company, MIF, wishes to annex the entire property to the city of Geneva. The groundwork has been, it's been being worked on the last few years. There's a partnership that's been taking place between the city of Geneva and MIF. So I find it very difficult to understand why we don't have the leadership to do something, especially Mayor Burns, in your respected role as the chair of that Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus Environmental Committee. You have so many regional connections, national connections. You've been our mayor for so long. You've been doing an amazing job. I find it extremely difficult to believe that there's nothing you could possibly do, or nothing that this council or its committees could possibly do. Everyone's been told, you're not allowed to talk about it. Natural Resources Committee, you're not allowed to talk about it. You're not allowed to speak out about this environmental issue that's affecting our community. I find that grossly unfair. And I challenge you to try to save these trees. There are plans out there that show that Building 5 can be repositioned to, in such a way that these acres of oak forest can be saved. And we do need a compromise. We need that kind of leadership. The environmental concerns that exist now require a new and different approach. So the old playbook of maybe 5, 10, 20 years ago needs to catch up. We need to bring it up to speed. And I don't want MIF as a neighbor. I don't think the over 2,000 people who've signed the change.org petition on the website, which is www.savegenevaoaks.com. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I think that they want to save these trees. And I don't think that all of those thousands of people, want MIF to be part of our community if this is how they're going to be treating us and our environment. So we need to take different measures. You are the perfect person, Mayor Burns, to do something about this. And I would just like to say, thank you for allowing me to exercise my First Amendment rights of free speech and not wash away my message, because I will keep coming back and telling people what my message is. SaveGenevaOaks.com. Thank you.
Daughter Alice was mad at me that I didn't allow her to say something because she wanted to say something tonight. Alice, you want to say your name?
Yeah.
Say your name.
My name is Alice.
Yeah, and what did you want to say?
Can you remind me?
Can I remind you? Why are we here? Why are we here for?
The trees.
Yeah, we're here for the trees. You went and saw those trees, didn't you?
Well, before,
Before, yeah? What did you hear that happened today?
some of the trees were cut down.
Yeah, some of the trees were cut down. What did you say to me when I told you that after school?
Mm-hmm.
You don't remember? I said, can you believe it? They cut down the trees today.
Almost all the trees.
Yeah, almost all the trees. Not almost, not all of them. Not all of them yet. There's still a chance to save them.
10.
Yeah, I think about 10. That's what we were talking about.
And Mommy and Daddy were sitting on the truck.
We were sitting on the truck. Yeah. And why did you say you wanted to come tonight? Because I asked you if you wanted to come. You've been having fun back there. Why did you want to come?
It's because I needed to say something.
What did you want to say?
Oh. Well, without air we can't just breathe or speak, right?
Without air, we can't breathe. That's right. And it would be hard to speak. Is that all you wanted to say? All right. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen,